Thank you very much for the invitation. I want to thank the IAS organizers for the opportunity. Also, Prof. Annie for making the recommendations, actually. My name is Fook Tim. I'm from the National University of Singapore. I am one of the principal investigators of a recent Singapore food story proposal and grant, actually. And we are developing what we are calling the Singapore Seed Innovation Hub, so that we can actually help all our farms and farmers to be able to probably increase their productivity and so forth. So today, this is that story. And I happened to be presenting this to the board of SFA the other day, and I presume that's why Prof. Annie said, you better come and present this here. Let me just see if I can change. Yeah, I can. Okay, good, thank you. So, like I said, we're going to have a large seed innovation hub. It's like a center or institute. And one of the goals of the center is to help all, not just one farmer or two farmers, but all the farmers. And you know Singapore is going very much into indoor farming, right? And everybody knows indoor farming, while higher productivity, you have a lot of other issues like cost, productivity, sustainability, and so forth. How do we overcome this? I think one of the things that we will have to realize is that many of the things that we are doing in indoor farming comes from outside. We've never really grown a lot of things in the indoor except maybe some greenhouses and so forth. So whatever we are growing, we're actually growing them from the seeds that were meant to be grown outdoor. They were never optimized for what is to be done indoor. So this is what we started to do to actually look at, as a summary, I just want to show you this is the whole purpose, to be able to use the latest technologies, and Singapore is very good at that, yeah, because we've got like 30 years of biomedical sciences, all that know-how. Actually, all that know-how is inert in Singapore, and actually, why not just take it and apply them to the field, now for food production as well as for seed production. What we're really doing is using the latest genomic technology to do selection, because I just told you, right, we never selected it for indoor. We also want to deep phenotype so that we can discover the new and the new properties of all the plants that we are putting in, because we take, for instance, whatever other people give us and say, all right, this is good for your health, you just take it for good for your health. Is it really good for your health? Maybe there are other things that are there that we don't know about. But we decided, if we're going to do this, we better do this properly and really deep phenotype and discover what is out there and use them appropriately. At the same time, we'll do digital twinning. Now, the word digital twinning is more appropriate for the people who understand engineering and computing. In other words, you twin the process, you twin the manufacturing process, you twin, and then you can optimize it accordingly. But nobody has ever done this for plants. What we're going to do is we're going to twin the ability to grow this plant, and so that we can almost predict this in a computer before we even put the plant into the soil or into the farm. And lastly, we'll do this by speed breeding. In the past, speed breeding takes 5-7 years. You know Singapore, right? We got no patience to wait 5, 7, 8 years before we get another seed. We want to do this yesterday. So we decided we're going to have to conglomerate all these technology together, and basically how we can use all this to be able to now help the farm to be more productive, more sustainable, more effective, and so forth. Let me tell you the story now that I set this up. You can see this is a picture of, if you don't realize, this is the picture of all the kinds of kale in the world. We now have more than 1,000, 600 to 700 different, we call this accessions. We've collected thousands of these germplasms so that we can rediscover them again. Because what people are using actually is only a handful, 5, 10 of them. But we decided we're going to look it backwards and then rediscover all of them. This is about 700 of just the kale alone. And we have the same for other types of vegetables and so forth. So what we're going to do is type them, and then we also will be able to discover what's new inside them. Why are we doing this? And why are we focused on seed breeding? Actually, we focus on seed breeding really because we realized when we looked at all the indoor farms and all the farms out there, the two parameters we are most interested in is improvement of productivity and capturing value. Really, if you want to improve, these are all the things you can improve on. But we realized that if we want to capture both high productivity as well as value, it has to come from seed breeding at the end of the day. And just to also, have some interaction so that I don't want to be talking myself here. This is one of the largest kale that I have grown from the accession, and this is my smallest research assistant. I purposely put the largest kale with the smallest research assistant. Yeah? And guess how old this kale was? Normally, if you grow this outside, it'll take 4 to 6 months to grow it, and it's seasonal. This, take a guess, 4 weeks old. This is a 4 weeks old kale grown in an indoor environment, and you can grow many, 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 many of them very fast. So just to give you an idea of where we are heading. So again, we started this by just having all the different types of kale, for example. When we're doing this for kale and all kinds of other vegetables, as well as leafy vegetables and so forth. And you can see this is just a germplasm of 200. Some of them have never even been used before. People just store them in the gene bank or the seed banks, basically. What we have done, we've got them all. And the next thing we have done is we now phenotype them deeply. In other words, we phenotype them means, the word phenotype means we look at everything we can see. Whether the leaves are straight or whether the leaves are slanted, the angle of the leaves, how many leaves, and so on. Are they crunchy, as well as how the root architecture, the leaf architecture, as well as how fast they grow, how high they grow, everything that we can do. We actually have hundreds or thousands for every single plant. And then, not only that, how long can they keep? We also want something that keeps very well, right? And on top of that, we also want things that looks nice. You go to the market, you see, almost yellowish like that. Nobody wants to buy that. You want deep greens and things like that, right? So things like that, the post-harvest quality. Plus, even how we have about 2,000-3,000 types of metabolites. Do they carry chemicals or do they carry things that actually may be useful for health? Antioxidants, anti-cancer, antimicrobials. So in total, there are about a few thousand of these parameters for every single plant that we have actually done. Some of them, even the gene banks that gave it to us didn't even realize they had this at the end of the day. So once we have this large database of this, now we can begin to work. Just to give you an idea, this is the whole collection of the world's kale. Normally, if you were to just grow a kale indoor even, the average that you can get is about here. 40 grams in 4 weeks in my condominium-like growth chambers. And 40 grams is the average you can get. But actually, if you notice some of these that we get from around the world, they are way past 40 grams. They are, in fact, 3 times to maybe even 4 times. 4 times the efficiency of what people normally grow. Now, when we talk about this in SFA, people always say, maybe let's try to achieve 10% or 20% more yield. I decided that I think we don't talk about 20% or 10% more yield. We're talking about fold changes in terms of yield here. The only reason why we were talking about 10, 20% was because we didn't look far enough. But now, what I'm trying to show you is that if you go and look at it in the world's potential, the potential is really possible to grow these as what I just showed you as the picture there just now. Some of these are now actually undergoing trials already in some of our urban farming. Of course, the urban farmers will come and tell you, yeah, I like the fast growth, very good, yield very high. But you know what? I don't like the shape. They also say, I like the fast growth, but you know what? I don't like the shape, I don't like the color, or I don't like the fact that it got a little bit or little hair here and there. I said, Mama lie. We grow the yield first. After that, we overcome this by overlaying the phenotypes, because we can breed in and breed them out at the end of the day. But the first thing I want to know is, can this make money for you or not? If I am able to grow this faster, it means instead of reaching 120 grams in 8 weeks, can I reach 120 grams in 4 weeks? And if I can reach 120 grams in 4 weeks, your turnover and your space use is actually doubling your yield. It hits the bottom line at the end of the day. So we start with that first. Then after that, we overlay it with better quality, better shape, better texture, better whatever you want at the end of the day. So this is the kind of thing we've done. And we now overlay this with even the genetics, every single one of them. What you are seeing here is every dot is a represented. There are 1,200 of these kales here. Every dot is representing the whole genome of the kales. What we have even found is that some people call this kale, but actually this is not kale, right? We can reorganize the nature, we can reorganize what is there and what is not there. So these are not real kale actually, but these are kales. But actually, one more thing that is really interesting is I want to show you this one. This is arugula. Arugula, I mean, some of you have eaten arugulas before, right? It's rockets, the very pungent one. We, after sequencing about 200-300 of them, the whole genome, we realized these are the Israeli arugulas, which are the original. And actually, nobody realized this. The original arugulas, they say, was from Israel. But the people who are actually, we are all eating the arugulas that are here, or here. But we realized that actually the original arugula must have crossed or hybridized from here with something up here. This something up here, you don't see any dots here because we still don't know. But actually we discovered that really arugulas was a hybridization of this with something up here that resulted in this. And then you can see this slowly sort of disappearing in its color, right? Because the original arugulas were all hybridized. This is outbreed. And then today, the arugulas that we eat are those that are here or here, that we keep breeding, and you can see. So indirectly, we can almost see the domestication of arugulas over time, over decades, over centuries. Well, that's interesting for us as a scientist now, but who cares about this, right, to the farms? The farms only say, got yield or not? But actually, we realize, as we move them here, we realize many of the chemical components begin to be either highlighted or disappeared. And we begin to realize, hey, the pungentness for arugulas came from where? So if any of you have eaten Nando's before, Nando's, the chicken shop, you go and eat the chili, you can have chili from 0 to 10, right? Well, we got arugulas that taste like grass, I call it 0, or arugulas that taste like chili. The pungentness is so strong, almost like pepper chili. Grade 10, 0 to 10. I'm hoping one day, once many of the farms are able to grow this, that Singapore and maybe around the region will have the choices of their arugulas. And this is not just for arugula, there's all the others as well. And what I want to show you next is this. Not just arugulas. This is what you can find actually in your kales, arugulas, and many of the greens. Well, I'm just basically telling you, Mommy was right. Mommy said, eat your greens. It's good for you. Healthy, yes. We actually found, based on the metabolites, these are actually very rich in many of these anti-cancers, antioxidations, antifungicides. The goal, however, is to how to breed this further so that the value of the plants that we breed them are not just a green when we eat the green for the sake of greening and so forth. There is food, there is health in the things that we eat. So in NUS, one of our goals actually is not just to farm to fork. Farm to fork means you just fill your stomach. What we want to do is farm to fork to health. Because what you are, what you eat, can also be of use as a healthy means. We are yet to actually exploit this. Can we now grow high yielding so that our farms are profitable, but not just high yielding with good health benefits like this? Now then, it makes the value of this crop higher. It then differentiates this crop from the ones that will come from, say, Cameron Highlands. Or then if you go to NTUC and say, the local crop is $3, the Cameron Highland one is $1, but you know why the local crop is $3? It's higher yield, fresher, greener, no pesticides, but may have more value. We realize one of the things that has to happen here is not just to make our farms profitable. We realize one of the things that we have to do is do like what Japan and the rest of the people are doing. Differentiate our farms. Differentiate our farms so that the products are not just compared to be what we call commoditized products. If they are commoditized products, you compete in a commodity pricing basis. But you add value, then you actually have this. This is what is the beginnings of what we want to be able to do. And actually, the technology can be done very fast. With now the whole genome and the phenotype, we are now able to tell which marker is actually controlling these phenotypes. In the past, when you want to breed, right, you have to say you want to breed fruits. You have to be able to grow the fruit first, see the fruit with your eyes, and say, yeah, this one is big fruit. And then you use the big fruit and cross with another big fruit one, so that you get the crossing, so that the progeny or the seeds will be big. Today, we don't have to do that. I actually can see from the genetics, this is related to big fruit, big fruit, big fruit. In other words, even as a seed, before I grow the plant, I know this will be a big fruit resulting plant. Not only that, I will know which to cross. And allowing us to do this is what we call in silico breeding. In other words, we are actually breeding before we even put a plant into the soil. We are breeding in our computer. That's what it's called in silico breeding. How do we do this? Because we know which combination of the genetics must be present. And this combination, we optimize on the computer first, before we even put anything onto the soil. This system allows us to maximize the crop and to what we call layer the crop according to what we want. I just want to show you how good this model is. For example, if I use all the combinations of the good genes and it predicts the mass means how heavy, how high yield is, this is what it predicts. This is what its actual yield is. And you can see how close they follow. If I want to just show how long the leaves are, like kale, they want to have longer leaves. This is the predicted based on the combinations of the markers to the actual leaves here. I even mentioned that you can even say, let's make kale high antioxidation. Actually, I found out high antioxidation is very easy to do. I didn't need a whole combination. I only need 4 markers. 4 markers, if I select the optimal of the 4 markers, this will actually give high antioxidation. So if I combine the high antioxidation with the high yield, with the high leaf, you have a super kale. And this can be done using speed breeding. So essentially, this is the program, and this is what we are doing here. And on top of that, if you want to layer multiple genes together, we can do it selectively. But actually, if you want to jumpstart and shortcut the system, especially if it's controlled by only one gene or one marker, I think everybody must have heard something about CRISPR and all that, right? Well, we also can do the CRISPR on all of this. And just show you one example, this is CRISPR for choysum even. This is CRISPR for choysum. Why? We want the choysum to be actually like this, nice architecture, don't flower so fast. Because if you flower too fast, the thing become a bit pungent and the taste is slightly different. Although I know some people like the flower, right? Other people don't. So what we want is a nice architecture, and then it's equal. In other words, in the farm, you go and see the farm across, you can see it's all equal. You don't want to see one high, one low, one high, one low. Terrible for harvesting, actually. So this is already available, and this is now already a plant variety which is registered, and one or two of the farms are now testing this out to grow them. At the end of the day, oops, does it move? Am I pressing correctly? Okay. At the end of the day, this is the process we are taking. And I think, whenever I present this, people always think, wow, so chim, so high class, so high tech. But actually, you just have to understand what it takes. All it takes is to have diversity. That's why we start with the world's germplasm that's available. If there's no diversity, there's nothing we can exploit. With this, we will find novel and even new traits that maybe other people have never seen before. And we now can actually incorporate them in. The second thing is, you need to know what you have. If you already know that there is a germplasm, you need to phenotype it deeply. Because if you have the germplasm but you don't phenotype it deeply, it's almost like there's a potential but you don't know the potential. So here we deep phenotype them from all the chemicals and the metabolites that it can produce, from all the shape that it can produce, the taste it can produce, how long it lasts. And then you know what potential it has. But if we overlay this with the genetics, so that we don't have to wait till it grows into a big fruit, then only we select for it. We now can select even when it is just a single seed. Even better, we can select even before it became a seed on the computer, calling this in silico breeding. So the modern breeders are not the people who are working in the field. The modern breeders are people who work in the lab, who understands mathematics, who understands statistics, who understands the plant themselves as well. After that, this is where the cultivar development process comes in. The cultivar development process is the process that is where creativity comes in. The feedback from the farms, the feedback from the consumers are what matters. The consumers may say, I want really high yield. The farms may say, I want high yield, but the consumers may say, I want this to be crunchy. I don't want this to break so early. Also, the consumers may say, I want this to be dark green, and so forth. This is where we then decide what traits that we want to take, what control mechanisms we want to put together, and design the right cultivar for use. Some of these are already been developed, and then once we have developed them, we mass produce them, put in the QC. This is almost like making QCs like in a factory, and then test them in the farms. Many farms are testing them to see, and then once the farms are testing them, they put it into the customers may then feedback, and then we come back to the cycle here and say, hey, you know what? I can overlay this new one with new traits that I want, and this process continues on and on and on. This is how we create value. At every single step of the R&D process, value can be created. Rather than just wait till it finishes, then you create value. We've taken this as a very phased approach. NUS has decided to invest in a high-tech agri-farm where all this that we have described has started. Whatever I have described to you just started in 2000, 2001, because that's when the Singapore food story came into it. And this is only 2003. 2001 to 2008 was only 2 years of work. And you can see how fast this has come. We've now expanded this to include even disease pathogens, resistance, and other things, so that we need new space. But in 2025, we will have a whole building targeted on this, basically. This is called the A2FT building. A2 stands for Agri-Tech, Aqua-Tech, and Food Tech. That means it's going to combine not just the production of both agri and aqua, but also food tech. Because remember, our goal was not just to fill our stomachs. It's actually farm to fork to health. That's the process we are taking. So that's why we combined all three, and this will be a large-scale indoor farm and so forth as well. We also don't want to just do this by ourselves. This will be a whole of the country effort. And obviously, SFA is driving a lot of this. NUS is the key in many groups in NUS, including Duke NUS, as well as GIS, but also internationally. And you can see the polys are also involved because we want to make sure there's enough training for the manpower. But majority of the key farms, especially the indoor farms, are also taking part in this process. So this is the whole of the Singapore effort, actually. And when we started, this was the challenge we were faced with. Commercially available cultivars are not even present. None of them are available. Breeding takes so long. Singapore only uses less than 1% of our land. And then on top of that, there's all these energy and sustainability issues. And then we also had to reduce waste. How do we deal with high cost? Well, when we took this up, it was more appropriate that they asked me to oversee this as well because my middle name is Fook. Fook means luck. And I guess they think that I have to put myself in the path of luck to be able to do this. And also, if you are Chinese, you also know when you have challenge or adversity, right? You turn challenge and adversity around, it becomes opportunity. So we think that actually doing this allows us to diversify the repertoire, speed breed, new technologies will be able to be incorporated. We will not only do it for Singapore, we will do it for Southeast Asia and the region beyond. Because if we are going to do this, no point stopping at just the Singapore's doorsteps. We are going to do it for Southeast Asia as well, at Greater Asia as well. We will aim for high yield first, but at the end of the day, we will also aim for better nutrition, taste, better architecture post-harvest. This will also help us to be amendable for better harvesting, to even address the issues of labor, because we don't want to have all this, but then you still have a lot of labor to harvest and so forth. How do we make this and incorporate architecture into this? So let me just stop here, and thank you, and this is my contact should anybody wants to have a word or two to discuss further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Prof. Chu has this special ability to turn very profound theory and concept. So we now have just a few minutes. Anyone wants to have a question to Prof. Chu? And if you do have, there are mics. Okay, so we have one question here. Oh.
Hello, hi, Prof. Chu. I'm Chen Zhong from NTU. Thank you for the enlightening talk. Based on the ideas of selecting the seeds, right? I saw you use the comparison of the trait value, and then you mentioned some of the strain may have 3 times better performance. My concern is this is based on the you optimize laboratory condition.
Correct.
And after selection, and then those seeds will be probably what you recommended to the farmers will be grown in their own farm. In fact, even in Singapore, just a small island, different farms use very different growth condition, different growth media, and then how you make sure those seeds can still perform consistently better?
Well, this is a wonderful and great question. This is the question that I asked right from the beginning. In genetics, we have a thing called G by E. G stands for genetics, E stands for environment. In fact, there's a GEM. G stands for genetic, E stands for environment, M stands for management. Management means how you maintain your farm. And all three must be actually optimized, right? So it turns out that actually we are very aware of this. And of the 600, we have a few that are high yield. But actually, that's the same reason why we are testing them in the farm. You know, there were a few that we thought wonderful, high yield, but when you go to the farm, boom, crash. It means that this is a G by E situation. Turns out that we actually have some that are stable, high yield, but stable environment. And we use another phenotype, the phenotype called standard deviation of the yield. You know, scientifically, it means no change in the yield in the different environment. And that actually is controlled by yet another combination of genes. And now at the selection, first phase, the selection, we ask for high yield first, but we also now look for the second phenotype, which is the stability of the yield, as a secondary phenotype to address the issue exactly like what you have here as well. But actually, this is very common, even when I was working in the plantation sector, and you know plantation is outside, right? They want it for high yield in different environment. In the oil palm industry, for example, they want it in soil that is actually coastal soil, or they want it actually in the sandy soil. But the seeds that are useful for coastal soil is different from the seeds that are used in sandy soil. And actually, we turn it around as usual. My middle name is Fook. We will actually use what is exploited to be useful for sandy ground, only for sandy ground, but only those for coastal, to optimize those as well. So this is what the environment throws at us, as well as even management throws at us. And we have now the ability to go back to the cycle and further select for those that are more optimal.
Thanks for the answer. So we have
Sorry. In fact, another question is related about the whole aim of the project, seeing added value, because in Singapore we are not probably compete for productivity, but maybe, as you mentioned, some value added agriculture produce. So for those health beneficial compound, probably we say like plant secondary metabolite. Right, so you say probably some customers, they want to pay $3 rather than $1 because your vegetable bring more health benefit. Then from government level or from this evaluation mode, how can we just make a correlation of this content of health beneficial compound and then to the price? Is there any standard? How are you going to, promote your agricultural produce in this sense?
Okay, let me be very clear. Our goal is yield. Our goal is yield. That means you have to have higher yield, period, in the first instance. The other value-added products or the other value added is secondary to yield. Because if the companies cannot sustain and cannot be productive, you can add all you want, it's not going to work at the end of the day. So the first primary must always be yield. The second thing, however, is all these added products, added qualities. I will have to say this is just the beginning of the potential of the seeds that are there. I think Michael and Vincent will know that my other life in the university is to manage the Singapore large-scale cohort. I run the Singapore's largest cohort of 20,000 people, for including how diet involved in disease and how all that as well. So this is where the secondary work is coming into play as well. But we can have a long discussion about this.
Thank you.